Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. Today I shall be talking about the game The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered. Oblivion, as I shall now be calling it, is a first-person role-playing game originally designed by Bethesda Game Studios, remastered by Virtuous and published by Bethesda. It was released on the 22nd of April 2025. Before we get going, dear viewer, if you like what I do down here in the ancient hold, then perhaps consider subscribing to the channel, giving the video a thumbs up, and maybe leave a comment with your own take on the game. In this video, I will attempt to describe my thoughts on the remaster of Oblivion, but from a more relaxed and more casual kind of way. Basically, this video comes from the view of an old gamer that likes to play these sorts of things in a casual manner, without min-maxing everything or playing optimally. Simply going your own way, wandering around, pottering about, doing whatever happens to take your fancy. In Oblivion, you are an adventurer on a quest to stop a secret cult from bringing destruction to Tamriel, while you try and close the gates of Oblivion. You will adventure around the world, mostly in first person, as you complete quests, level up, and bring battle to the enemies of the land. I have to say, in a rare moment of abandoning my cynicism of the gaming industry, I was genuinely excited that we might be getting an Oblivion remaster. For some reason, I really had an urge to play a grand role-playing game, and perhaps an Elder Scrolls at that. I have fond memories of playing Morrowind, Oblivion and Skyrim, so when some of the rumours started abounding about a possible remake/remaster that might actually be released at any moment, that child in me suddenly jumped to the fore, riven with unchecked excitement. I do think it's worth talking about this. Though anything else you might mention, cynically or not, for a week or so, the sentiment of the internet community on Reddit was one of a genuine excitement, of that youthful hope we had when we were young. People were just excited for a video game, nothing more, and that is a wonderful thing, especially as the remake turned out to be quite good. Spoiler alert, dear viewers. Nowadays, especially from this old dwarf, who is more than distrustful about the corporate video game business, it is very difficult to become enthralled by or excited for the release of a video game in modern times. After years of greed, where many a company chose making as much money as humanly possible at the expense of creating a good video game, I wouldn't blame anyone for not being joyous and hopeful that a game soon coming out was going to be wonderful to play, reminding us of the old days. Call it nostalgia, and the fact that the game has already been proven a good entity, sure, but that doesn't matter. We had a glimpse of the old ways, of when creatives were freer to construct a good game first, instead of declaring a business model with service charges, and then building a game around it. I am aware, of course, that Oblivion was the first, or perhaps first greatly publicised example of microtransaction silliness, with the fabled horse armour. At this point, I guess we'd take the good whenever we can, and this game has good in it, dear viewer. The first and obvious change from the original is the graphical upgrade to Unreal Engine 5. The character models, the rocks, the trees, the ruins and castles and towns and everything else looks very fancy, bringing new life to this venerable title. The over-the-top bloom effects are gone, with everything appearing a little bit more realistic, I guess you could say. It is rather interesting how a lift-up of graphical fidelity can breathe such extra life into a game. It is curious. It feels like a new game in one sense, especially as it's been a long while, since I played the original. Everything looks good here, and there is a range of settings you can mess about with should you wish to crank things up or down. I would be remiss though to not mention the elephant in the room, which is performance. I have a pretty decent system and I can run a lot of games on higher settings, but with Oblivion the graphical performance can swing wildly. If I am outside running about with other characters on screen, the frame rate can fluctuate quite dramatically. I'm not an expert on graphical fidelity and what have you, but I do know that this game can chug a lot at times. It is most notable with these old dwarf eyes. It is a shame and definitely has an effect on the experience. I also had multiple hard crashes to the desktop, so make sure to save often. You could suggest that because of the graphics overhaul, Oblivion has lost some of its charm. The weird bloom and over-brightness of things is what you might remember of the game, and I think that is a fair point you could make, and I wouldn't argue against you, but I think a good job has been done here. Perhaps because I've already played the Oblivion in its first iteration, I'm actually not as worried about missing out on the old look and feel. Besides your own character, all dialogue in game is fully voiced as they were originally, and from what I can remember, they are the same like four people that did every NPC in the game. I'm glad they've preserved this. I guess it would have been quite a task to re-record all those lines with different actors, and really, I don't think anyone wanted that anyway. Story-wise, quest-wise, and everything else, they all seem to be here. I couldn't remember all the quests, of course, and the shrines and all that, but I haven't seen anything on Reddit, for example, about missing content from the original game, so it all seems to be well. I'm sure that if anything was missing, then we certainly would have heard about it. Moving around the world, exploring Cyrodiil, is good fun, and feels like that sort of free-reign role-playing game experience that you remember from these Elder Scrolls games. From the beginning, all major cities are already unlocked on the map. There is no fog on the map in that sense, and this allows you to fast travel to any of them whenever you like, as long as you're outside. The space in between them, on the other hand, is unknown to you at the start, so it is up to you to have a runabout and unlock different locations, and there are a lot of locations, dear viewers. There is a lot of stuff stuffed in here. You can't really run too far without coming across some alien ruins, an abandoned mine or fort, or some strange altar to a Daedric prince. So if you wish to run around the place and have adventures, you certainly can, and I did that a lot, just seeing where the wind takes me, as it were. This is the great thing about these sorts of games, you can just run around and get lost in it for a while, and sometimes that's what we need. Cyrodiil, the setting for this game in the main Tamriel world, is mostly a classical kind of green and pleasant land for the majority of it. There isn't a lot of difference from location to location, besides the northern parts of the map in Bruma and Cloud Temple, for example. I don't really mind this, as I'm a fan of the classic green kind of fantasy land, but I can see why some might suggest it a little boring. I don't think Bethesda would make a really grim dark thing for a mainline Elder Scrolls game. In character creation, there's a lot to do. The world of Tamriel as we know it is home to many different races, from the various types of elves to Khajiits the cat people, Argonian the lizard people, orcs and several races of humans. You are free to create a character of any of these sorts of people, and there is a lot of settings to change how they look. And, dear viewers, you can make some quite unique looking characters. Dwarves do kind of exist in the lore, I think, and I can remember meeting one in Morrowind, but sadly we are unable to here. We'll let them off this time. Each race has their own abilities, which might help you decide which to take, depending on what class you might want to go with. For example, Bosmer, or Wood Elves, are naturally resistant to disease and poison, and can command an animal to fight for their side. They are naturally good at archery too. Orcs, on the other hand, are instinctively good with heavy armour and melee weapons. They also have a daily ability that increases their melee damage for a certain time. Bretons are resistant to magical damage, Argonians can breathe underwater, High Elves are better with casting spells, and so forth. Each race has a disposition to a certain kind of class which you might want to play, but really, dear viewers, just play whatever race you want to. It might take a little longer to do certain things depending on what class you pick, but in the end it isn't going to ruin your character and experience. If that is how you wish to play, like a sneaky orc archer, for example, will definitely still work. Talking of the classes, there is a set of predefined roles containing preset major skills. There are a lot available, and from their description and name, of course, you'll have a good idea about what they excel at. A thief is good at sneaking about and stealing stuff, a barbarian is good at melee combat, an archer at range combat, and a battle mage, an offensive spellcaster, and so on. But what are major skills, and why are you so handsome, Mr. Dwarf, I hear you ask? Well, you know, just good beard maintenance, really. Major skills are a set of the skills available to all players that are easier to level up compared to other minor skills. For example, if you have Blade as a major skill, you'll level it up faster than if you spent the same amount of time leveling up a minor skill, say of Blunt. Essentially, major skills are the skills that will likely be the strongest as you play. If you care about being good at certain things in game from the start and want to focus on those, then being major skills is a good choice. As I've played a few different Elder Scrolls before, and have some idea of what I'm doing, I think, I decided to make my own custom class, a ranger, where I selected each individual major skill myself rather than simply selecting a class. What is really cool about character creation is that, like Morrowind and probably Skyrim, I can't remember, choosing your race and class is part of the intro to the game. You begin the game detained in the Imperial prison for some reason, before suddenly the Emperor and his royal guard, the Blades, enter your cell and make way to a secret passage in the wall behind you. It is here at first, when the Emperor talks to you, seemingly already knowing you, that you decide on your race. You then end up following them as you fight your way through rat-infested sewers, where you will select your class, ending with the death of the Emperor and your eventual escape out into the wide land of Cyrodiil. It is that kind of classic Bethesda-style escape, where you emerge through the sewer grate and rub your eyes from the striking sun as you behold the outside world. And of course, with the shinier graphics, it all looks pretty cool. Before he died, the Emperor, played by Patrick Stewart, placed the Amulet of Kings under your protection, so that you might find his last remaining heir and close the gates of Oblivion that threaten the world with destruction and subjugation by the evil Daedric prince, Mehrunes Dagon. And, dear viewer, you are free to have at it and follow the main quest all the way to the end, without much doing of the other content of the game. But this is a grand RPG, and you know what that means. Running about the world, getting stuck into all the random side quests, and exploring nooks and crannies of the world presented to us. There is an awful lot of side quests in Oblivion, varying from decent quest chains in themselves with some twists and turns, to a simple request to just clear out an abandoned mine nearby. There are various factions too which you can get associated with, like the Fighters Guild and the Mages Guild. Most towns in the game have a Mages Guild, and I would recommend you engage with their questlines, as you gain access to the Arcane University in the Imperial City, which grants you the use of spellcrafting and item enchanting, very powerful features of the game. You can do this without really having to cast much magic, if you're worrying about that. There are other more mysterious factions as well, like the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood, if you wish to be a little bit unsavoury. How you level up in Oblivion is tied in with what I was talking about earlier, your skills. When you use any skill in the game a certain number of times, like casting a restoration spell or swinging your sword, you will get a level up in that skill, starting from 1 to 100. At certain breakpoints, usually 25, 50, 75, etc., they will grant some kind of perk, like your weapon strikes costing less fatigue, repair hammers breaking less, access to higher level spells, and so on. In the original version of the game, you gained levels by leveling up major skills a certain number of times. In the remaster, it is more forgiving, and you can level up by using any of the skills, both major and minor. The only difference is that you need fewer levels of major skills than minor to level. Me personally, I just kind of did whatever I fancied. I'd run about casting spells, sneaking and fighting, and whatever else as I wished. Sometimes I might jump about while casting spells to try and gain a few levels in spellcasting and acrobatics. It really is up to you how you want to engage with leveling in Oblivion. Don't feel like you have to be optimizing how quickly you gain levels and when to gain new levels and all that. Of course, if you enjoy that, then please go for it. After gaining a level, the next time you go to sleep, you will level up. On this screen, you're granted 12 points to distribute to your attributes however you like. Attributes have a large impact on your character. Endurance directly affects how much health you have. Strength determines how hard you hit with melee weapons and how much stuff you can carry and so forth. And yes, dear viewer, you can become encumbered if the total weight of what you have on you is greater than your maximum carry weight. Strong characters can carry more, but there are other ways to carry more, like special potions and spells that increase your carrying potential. As a quick tip, dear viewers, when deciding on what to pick up loot-wise, check the price to weight ratio. Some things are very heavy and don't sell for much, or not comparatively, to a number of items that together might make up the same weight. One aspect of the game that is somewhat contentious is how the world levels up with you. This means whenever you level up, the monsters and other baddies you encounter will be more difficult to defeat. This means enemies will have better armor and weapons, and there will also be new ferocious monsters to fight. For example, one of the first bits of the main quest involves you saving a town called Kvatch from an Oblivion gate. If you go in there at lower levels, you might be pitted against imps and clan fears, but if you went there at higher levels, you will likely contend with Stormed Atriox, Daedroths, Spider Daedra, and all sorts of other nasties. Is there some cause for concern here then, old dwarf? Well, from my experience in the game of wandering about and not worrying about it too much, I never really felt that I was overwhelmed by bad guys and mostly felt quite strong. Whether they eased this up a bit with the remaster, I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel like you're hopelessly up against a brick wall of baddies that you can't defeat. I think the one piece of advice I would give is that make sure you have at least some combat skills as major skills, so they are levelling up as you go. So if you're worried about the level scaling, then I would say you can rest well, for unless you don't ever upgrade your gear and have somehow not been doing any combat, you will be fine. So as I've mentioned combat, let's talk about it proper. The combat in Elder Scrolls games generally has a lot to be desired, and Oblivion is quite the example. Melee combat revolves you swinging your sword at something until it dies. You can block, and there is a dodge move you can get, but for me, whenever I used melee, I just kept smacking stuff until it died. It isn't all that exciting, sadly. There was a game, I think it was called Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, where the first-person combat felt quite visceral, so it is possible to do it well. Also, you should check that game out, it's pretty cool. There are other options though, like sneak attacking for large amounts of damage, and of course the tried and true sneaky archer type where you ping stuff down from range with a bow. This is what I mostly did, as it can be quite satisfying to down a mob from afar. There is a large number of spells you can learn and create that can have powerful effects for combat. There are several different schools that each focus on different types of sorcery. Obviously you can fling fire and lightning at people using destruction, but other schools provide ways to fight, such as summoning monsters or bound equipment. You can also buff yourself and debuff opponents in various ways. There is quite the assortment of stuff to get into here with Oblivion, which can vary things up a bit, but if you're looking for that, like I said, visceral feeling melee combat, then you might be a bit disappointed. There is a lot to Oblivion, with quests and dialogue between characters, creating potions, getting stuck in intrigue and nicking stuff to sell to a fence. That combat simply is a pillar of the game rather than the main focus. There are many things to do in Oblivion. You could spend all your time being a thief, sneaking about places, picking locks and stealing things, or you could be a stabby so-and-so and follow the Dark Brotherhood questline. You could run about and see what you come across, clearing ruins and mines, or try to clear as many Oblivion gates as you can. Oblivion gates are not the most exciting content, unfortunately, and when you've done it a few times, it can feel like a slog to do more. There are powerful items to be had in Oblivion though, and when you complete one of them, you will gain a sigil stone, powerful artifacts that can be used to enchant your gear, so they can certainly be rewarding, just a little unexciting after a while. Oblivion is one of those games you can just exist in, be whatever you want and engage with whatever content or systems that you want. There is technically sort of an end if you follow the main quest, and the expansions perhaps, but you can do them whenever you want or not at all, and you can still have a good time. The world feels alive. With the infamous Radiant AI, NPCs have routines going here and there and engage in conversation with each other in all the funny ways that people remember. You can't go to a shop at night as the NPCs are asleep, though you could break in of course. People take a liking or disliking to you depending on several factors, and will comment on you as you go past, like being the hero of Kvatch or having a silvery tongue due to your high personality. It has that odd charm to it which is quite endearing. I remember at one of the Daedric shrines, all of the NPCs randomly didn't have clothes on. NPCs can get stuck on scenery, have conversations with walls which can be funny. These things just happen, and they add to the mythos of this game and helps it to feel like a living, breathing entity. I think Virtuous has done good work here, with breathing new life into an old classic. They do appear to have done this in a sympathetic way, in that it all looks shinier now, but it still has all that jank and weirdness that people remember from their own time with it. It still feels like the old Oblivion that I remember from years ago. This is important, dear viewer, and perhaps why they refer to it as a remaster than a remake. All the silly thoughts and strange NPC behaviour is still here. The adoring fan, the same 4 people voicing every character in the game, the quest lines, the baddies, it is all here. But saying all that, you don't need to have played any other Elder Scrolls game to get stuck in with Oblivion, and you don't need to know much about the lore of Tamriel. There are lots of books and such found all over the world that explains lots of things should you wish to find out. You can very much just dive straight in. With levelling being streamlined and not being so unforgiving, you don't have to worry about getting that perfect level up. I think that change is definitely positive. You don't want to be worrying about such things, enjoying the game itself, rather than how optimally you need to use your skills. So I think they've done the right thing here, and perhaps this might have been the best way to appeal to both older players and new ones alike. There isn't an official support for mods like other games, which is a shame, and might have given this game a longer breath of life, though I imagine people out there will be playing it a lot anyway, me included. I think perhaps one of the main problems of the Oblivion Remaster is the price. It came out to a £50 price tag, $60 if you wanted the special edition. There has clearly been a lot of work going into this, so I can understand to a degree, but by their own admission this is a remaster, so I think it could have been cheaper. Indeed, I think if you own the original game, then getting it at a discount would have been a nice thing. But there we are, dear viewers, it's not all joyous fun. The big games company has to make as much money as possible. If you're looking for a grand first-person role-playing game that looks quite fancy, then I think Oblivion Remastered would be right up your street. You don't need to know anything about the previous games to play this. You can jump right in and engage with all the lore and backstory however you wish. If you're anything like me, you will get lost in here for hours and hours, simply pottering about and having some fun. If you want to make a point about the high price of it, then I totally understand. Game prices go up, but everyone's wages stays the same. For some reason, I just had to play this one on launch. Perhaps I allowed myself to be a young dwarf once more and got caught up with all the internet hype and hope. I definitely had good fun. So on sale, this game would be a great purchase, allowing you to get lost in the world of Tamriel for a time, and close shut the gates of Oblivion. And there we go, dear viewers, another game from me here down in the ancient dwarven hold of our ancestors. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time.